All right, good afternoon, distinguished guests. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the day 3 of Fair Finance Asia General Assembly 2026. How are you feeling right now? Great. Can we please give big round of applause for all of us? Can I hear your spirit? Okay, now let me check your spirit. Semangat pagi. Semangat pagi. Okay, this time I change the rules a little bit. So whenever I say semangat pagi, which means morning spirit, you have to answer me with pagi pagi pagi. Okay, with full of spirit, like pagi pagi pagi. Okay, so pagi 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 means morning morning morning. Okay, let's give it a try. Semangat pagi. One more time, semangat pagi. Okay, now close it with a big round of applause for all of us. Thank you very much. Okay, now everyone, I would like to welcome you back to our session. I hope everyone had a wonderful lunch and enjoyed the food. And of course, ready to settle down and feeling refreshed for the next session. And I would like to say hello to our online participants. Thank you very much for joining us from all over Asia. You are very welcome on this session. And ladies and gentlemen, we will now begin our next live stream session entitled The Tipping Point of Influence, FFA's Regional Advocacy Footprint and Next Steps. And before we start our agenda, may I kindly ask everyone to put your mobile phones on silent mode, yeah? Kindly recheck your mobile phone. And then this session will examine Fair Finance Asia's regional advocacy achievements, emerging opportunities, and the path forward in strengthening sustainable finance across the region. And the discussion will be moderated by Mr. Aha Maftuhan from Prakarsa. So, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Mr. Aha Maftuhan from Prakarsa.
Okay. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Very good afternoon, colleagues, friends, both here in Jakarta and who attends online, panelists and all participants. Welcome to the session of showcase of Fire Finance Asia uh, regional advocacy footprint and next steps. It is a session on how Fire Finance Asia showcase and how the Fire Finance Asia partner counterpart responses. So it will be very meaningful for us to see what our achievement, what's our challenge, and what next challenging for me to moderating this session. So as I'm already mentioned before, this session will going to see the concrete advocacy wins, both from Fire Finance International and Fire Finance Asia contribution, especially on the sustainable finance policy development, the impact of our effort to the communities across Asia, especially. And after that, we will hear responses from our counterpart, especially from a development partner, yeah, from regulator, from financial institution. So before we start, I do like to introduce our speaker briefly and also invite speaker to take a seat in the podium. So we have Bernadetta Victorio, program lead of Fire Finance Asia. Please join with me over there. Please, Bea, join with me. Yeah. The second speaker, Daniel Boyko from Fire Finance International. Please join with me in a stage. The third speaker is Aldila Rahimah from ASEAN Center for Energy. Please. And Erin Viaje from Youth Advocate for Climate Action Philippines, YAKAP, please. And we also have Heidi Ir Dupuy. She is head of the NGO and Civil Society Center of ASEAN Development Bank, attend online. Hello, Heidi. You hear me? Just test your connection. No. Okay. We will connect with Heidi soon. So our session will be in a traditional way. It's mean I will give each speaker 5 minutes each, and then we will open question and answer session, and we will have responses from all speakers, and then we will wrap up. That's all. No working session. So uh, without further ado, I will give the first opportunity to Bernadetta Victorio, Bea. She will begin this session, and have, I will bring the specific question to Bea because it will be very important in our session to set the tone of our session. Yeah. In your opinion, Bea, where has the FFA network most effectively contributed to the shift in policy, practices, and others aspect of investor behavior, of regulator policies in uh, domestic or country level and regional level. And please also highlights Fire Finance role as regional civil society network influencing sustainable finance policy and practices. Please, times 3 until 5 minutes, no more. Go ahead.
Thank you so much, Maftuk. And when I'm called by my full name, I don't almost understand that it's me because it feels like feels like my parents are calling me. Anyway, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for this question. This almost feels like a phase two end line evaluation question to me. So I will try to answer it as best as possible, suitable for a set stage audience or a session. I think the greatest value of the Fair Finance Asia Network comes in a couple of dimensions. So I think the first one is the amount of knowledge, expertise, and capacity that we have built over the years. I think when Fair Finance Asia started, there were already a lot of very good civil society engagement in the financial sector, but in terms of capacity to understand the linkages, in terms of how finance impacts very specific risks related to environment, relating to human rights, to labor, and how that translates or connects very clearly to the work of our partners that have their own expertise, both at regional and national level on those topics, is actually a real value of the network. So even though we already had a lot of labor rights, experts, for example, in the network, a lot of environmental defenders, environmental rights defenders already in the network, the fact that we were able to equip them with good financial advocacy ability to connect and even frame their influencing and messages to their stakeholders in such way is a really great value. I think the other point that I want to mention is the fact that we work as a coalition based network is also very important, because we all face varying degrees of civic space restrictions in our own countries. And there's only a certain amount of advocacy, criticism in some cases that you can do in your own country. But the fact that we are all working together as a network, and the strength of the regional network is providing that sort of protective barrier to some of the civic space actors, within our network, to be able to, advocate on sensitive topics like human rights, like environmental degradation in their own countries, but we are still able to amplify those specific messages through the regional advocacy is also very important. And I think moving forward into the next phase, this is going to be even more important for the FFA network, for us to strengthen our ability to safeguard the civic space in order for our work on financial transparency and accountability to continue.
Thank you, Bia. Uh, I'm clearly remember when we start, yeah, as civil society organizations start working on financial issues. We are face underestimated by a financial institution, by the regulators and others step of civil society organization work on financial issues. So knowledge, capacity, and network. Next question to Daniel. Yeah, as Fire Finance International, Daniel can give us the reflection on how FFA as a regional network on sustainable finance advocacy initiative support or in line with Fire Finance International initiative across Europe, Latin America, Africa, especially on specific issues such as critical mineral or others. Go ahead.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me to give the FFI perspective. So, what was being said about representing civil society in terms of financial institutions, that is very much something that connects us, complements us, because we have such a similar approach. When I was thinking about preparing for this and thinking about advocacy landmarks or advocacy wins, I was thinking more about the fact that we work through advocacy processes and that this happened through time. And we are supporting civil society, but it all starts at the community level. And when we're thinking about influencing the financial sector to make it more responsible, I think the cornerstone of this advocacy is the fact that at the end of the day, we're standing by communities against the abuses of corporations, multinationals, and that we're using the financial sector as a tool to fight for the rights of these communities. And I want to bring a few examples just briefly. For example, we have a case in Uganda that's ongoing right now, where a large-scale company from the USA is operating in a series of rural districts, running commercial farms, and there's a lot of abuse happening. Forced evictions, dispute lands. So how does this process start? With our local partner, starts documenting the abuses. And then we learn who is financing this corporation, and it's an international finance corporation linked to the World Bank. There is a formal complaint mechanism. We start the complaint. And that starts a mediation process with the company. It's a success. There has been a binding agreement, so that's good, where the compensation needs to happen. Is this the end? No, it's start of a process because there has to be compliance, etc. I think there is also the regional component, which is very palpable here in the FFA General Assembly, talking about regional advocacy. And we're also trying to produce regional advocacy as well. We have an example so led by our coalition in Colombia, and they spent years engaging the Inter-American Development Bank for the projects on the Amazon. These are climate finance initiatives, and they produce research finding that 80% of this IDB-related program is structured as debt and not as grants. So the question here is who's taking the fiscal burden for this so-called climate finance, and whether affected communities, those that live in the territories, have a say on how these instruments get structured. And just to finish, I have to emphasize, and I think it's quite important also, to emphasize that there's a global level as well. And that's perhaps one of the great values that the Fair Finance Network has. The fact that we have coalitions in countries, but also in countries in Europe, in the Netherlands, Germany, Sweden, and that we could do that connection because we live in a globalized world and finance itself is extremely globalized. So we need, for example, I know there's been examples in Asia, from Indonesia. I know there's been an example, for example, when Responsibank was able to connect to the ING, which is a Dutch bank, which was financing and continues to finance coal-based coal-fired power plants here. And through that connection, there was a formal complaint, and we were able to make a, oh, that's better, a meeting, a dialogue between the bank and the affected communities. There's also been the use of Fair Finance Sweden, of evidence produced by FFA to generate press in Sweden where the investors are happening, to put pressure for the investors there. So I think that's something that connects us and supports us mutually. Focus on communities and the global outreach.
Thank you, Daniel. One word that I really think very fundamental is a complement. Yeah? How a global network complement with a regional and national also community network, and the community also give a complement to the global network as well, because the real problem in the community level and how to connect each other, the complement each other. Thank you, Daniel. I will go to the next speakers. We will go to Erin Buiviaje. It's correct to spell your name? She is a youth advocate for climate action Philippines. So first question for you, Erin. How did a collaboration YACAP with Fair Finance Asia Network to bring a better understanding of financial sector to a youth community, and what have been the most impactful collaboration YACAP and Fair Finance Asia, especially in the previous one, Bangkok Climate Action Weeks, Jet Convening, and others occasion. Please.
Thank you so much. YACAP is itself is also a network in the Philippines of different organizations. We also have an international counterpart, which is the People's Rising for Climate Justice Youth. So we understand the value of being in a community, of having connections both locally and globally. And FFA has really provided us with not just the network, as Daniel has said or has emphasized, that there has been that kind of gratefulness in the connections that we've been given, we've been introduced to, but also, as Miss Bea has mentioned earlier, that there's that level of equipping us, especially the youth. For example, earlier we were talking about bank scamming, and I know a lot of youths don't even have bank accounts yet. So, how do we connect that kind of understanding to the youth sector? And it's also the topic of climate justice and finance. They have a really good intersectionality. The only problem is because we are young, we don't think about it just yet. But we do have the general understanding or the general concept of big financiers are big players when it comes to the climate crisis. We just don't know the specifics behind it. So through the JET convenings, through the Climate Action Week, through general assemblies, these have all been really eye-opening, especially for us. Um, yeah. Also, the reports that have been given. The topic of critical minerals was something that wasn't I- is a bit new to the Philippines, but it's going to be something that's very big, considering that we've just entered the critical minerals agreement with the U.S. So that's going to be booming, unfortunately, real soon. So we see the urgency of these topics that have to be talked about, especially with the youth. So um, when it comes to the climate crisis, we have to understand that um, follow the money, see where it goes. And unfortunately, it's not going to good infrastructures. It's not going to the right places, to the right people, to organizations, small, big, such as ourselves, unfortunately. But it's good that through networks like these, we're able to meet like-minded people who may or may not necessarily be in the climate sector. But once again, we just see the intersectionality of all of these topics, all of it just to be able to save our planet and our people.
Thank you. So good point Irene's bring in our session. Uh, the intergenerational equity, it will be very close with sustainable finance issues, with the climate mitigation and adaptation issues, etc. It will be very good to have a youth group in our network and how to bring the intergenerational equity in our works. So thank you, Irene. And we will going to uh, Aldila. She is from ASEAN Center for Energy, and I have a special request to a technician to making sure the connection of Haiti is in a good situation. So, Aldila, as a represent regional organization, yeah, intergovernmental organization in Southeast Asia, the ASEAN in October last year, especially ASEAN Minister of Energy endorsed the ASEAN Plan of Action for Energy Cooperation for 2026-2030, which is include gender and just inclusive recommendation for the first time ever. So can you explain a bit in front of a civil society organization what does mean for ASEAN in a broad sense and in specific issue on climate and sustainable finance.
Thank you so much, Pak Mahduf, for the question. A very big question, I suppose, for this very great afternoon. As Pak Mahduf mentioned, this is a very critical time for us to have a discussion since we just have lunch. I hope everyone here are not too, too sleepy. Yeah, maybe before I jumping into the stories of how we came about with the just and inclusive energy transition in the regional energy framework, I would like to give just some short reflection or like some introduction. Maybe not many of you know about ACE, the ASEAN Center for Energy. As Pak Mahduf mentioned a little bit, we are intergovernmental organization that serve the 11 ASEAN member states on their priorities in the energy sector, especially in terms of regional energy cooperation. Now, in recent years, I think ACE has also been giving attention to the social dimension of the energy transition. And then one of our important opportunities to engage more on this is our collaboration with Oxfam, with through the IJET, Influencing Just Energy Transition Initiative. Now, this is where then we are come about with our kind of like collaboration with the FFA, with the Fire Finance Asia. So a lot of our engagement with FFA are not always in the form of formal or like standalone partnership, but mostly are like activities under the wider IJET ecosystem. Now, I think just wanted to touch upon that a little bit since I think this is what actually influencing actually works, right? Because not necessarily that one organization submit recommendation and then suddenly we see it in the policy, but through like series of when several organizations raise similar concerns, and then we brought it in a dialogue. So that's like when we provide evidence, I think that's when it's cumulatively, we encounter that this is what we can introduce this, the importance of just and the importance of inclusivity, for example, to the policymakers. Now, we also learn a lot of with our interaction with FFA, what Bea also mentioned previously regarding the important role of finance impact, especially to human rights, to communities, and also to ecosystem. So we learn a lot from FFA, from regional cooperation perspective. And then circling back to your question, Pak Mahduf, so then how we then able to bring the perspective of just and inclusive energy transition right into the regional blueprint of energy cooperation. So the APAEC, or ASEAN Plan of Action for Energy Cooperation, is the blueprint of energy cooperation in the ASEAN, and it's every 5 years we renew that, and then this year is the first year of the implementation of the new cycle. And I would say our engagement with civil society networks, especially with FFA, with Oxfam, and also with AMPE, for example, has been like part of the gradual process for us to helping bringing the topic of just an inclusive energy transition into our blueprint. I think I would like to mention a little bit back then in 2024, one of important milestone that we had is that during the ASEAN Energy Business Forum, which conducted in Vientiane, Laos PDR, it was conducted alongside the ASEAN Ministers on Energy meeting. And for the first time in this forum, civil society representatives participated in this kind of a high-level ASEAN event. And they were not only being there as the participants, but also sitting together with ASEAN policymakers and having discussions, presenting evidence, experiences, and concerns regarding energy transition. We bring up the topic of just energy transition at the time, and also gender equality. So this particular event is actually, we created a space where policymakers could hear how energy policy and investment affect people and communities on the ground. And then after that, through our, again, through our collaboration with Oxfam in January 2025, we also published a guide to a just and inclusive energy transition. So this is the first time also we define what is just and inclusive energy transition meaning in the ASEAN energy sector. We define what are the priorities, and then also what are 10 different, the importance of these concept in terms of energy transition in the ASEAN. Now, of course, this engagement did not lead to immediate policy change after one meeting, but they helped building understanding over time. So eventually, this progress then reflected in the ASEAN Plan of Action for Energy Cooperation 2026-2030 for the first time. Okay, I will just, I saw like Kyle already holding times up. Just an inclusive energy transition is included in the center of APEC overall time. So I just wanted to mention that the impact of this, meaning that not only that it's, it's just as a theme, but it meaning that our priorities, the next 5 years of ASEAN energy cooperation, will actually focusing on just an inclusive energy transition, as well as the gender equality as a whole topic, and becoming our action plan as well. I think I will stop there. Thank you.
Thank you, Bu Aldila. Please applause. I think it's a couple good point. First, both formal and informal engagement are important, so we cannot rely on only formal engagement, but also informal engagement. I think our achievement reflect on gradual and long process. Even though Bu Aldila mentioned about the building understanding each other over time, I will add it is also building trust each other, because if no trust each other, we can going forward. Thank you so much, Bu Aldila, and then we will move to next speaker, Heidi Ir Dupui. She is head of NGO and Civil Society Center at the ASEAN Development Bank, ADB. Hello, Heidi. You hear me clearly? Okay, thank you. So, straightforward. Your question is about what role does CSO play in ADB Sustainable Development Agenda, and what is the value added of regional CSO network, especially Fire Finance Asia and the other CSO network for Asian development banks. Time's yours, Heidi. Thank you so much, Heidi. So, some point that we can grab from your reflection is about how civil society organization can take role as a partner to give some clarity, checking report to the reality, etc. So it is will be good if the second round of our discussion you can tell us about the most effective engagement method that will uh, uh, effective on encouraging our engagement. But please keep the question. I will going back to you soon. So we will going to second round, but don't worry to the participant. I will give you question and answer session after the second round. So we will plenty have enough question and answer times. So the second question I will going back to panelists. Perhaps Pia will the last one because as a host organization. So I will going First to Daniel. Yeah. The second question on our session. Daniel, looking ahead, yeah, Fire Finance Asia will have a third phase, yeah, in our project. So, what should FFA prioritize in third phase to scale it is influence, strengthen accountability, contribution, or impact in financial, in sustainable finance issue, especially at the regional level, and how Fair Finance Asia also can more contribute to the Fair Finance International works.
It's for me to tell Fair Finance Asia what to what to
Yeah, it's
focus
okay.
on.
It's okay. It's
Well,
it's
I can
our humble manner.
well I can share what I think all coalitions can focus on to remain relevant, and also acknowledging that it's always an uphill battle. You know, advocacy on financial institutions. There's so many very big players. Uh, well, I would say keep doing what you're doing. I think the strength of the regional component and the fact that you can interact with regional partners is definitely a super strength, because there's so much connection that you can generate, similarities but differences, but also common understandings, common struggles. I would say that is something we can do more in Fair Finance International. As I've mentioned, we're developing more regional collaboration between our coalitions in Latin America and Africa. But definitely a space like this one, there is something that we can do more, and learning from you. And then I think keep doing what you're doing. I think a focus on the cutting edge themes, the focus on critical minerals is very important. That there is a race globally in this, the focus on a just energy transition, the focus on AI and the new demand for energy and land, and how that affects communities. I'm not telling you anything new, but I think that's part of what I can say in this uphill battle of advocacy that there is.
Thank you so much, Daniel. Appreciate. So let's keep doing. Let's keep up on the regional collaboration. And Daniel also mentioned such as the issues such as critical mineral, just energy transition, communities, and others. So, Erin, yeah, as a youth representative here, so looking ahead, how can Fire Finance Asia strengthen collaboration with youth, especially in our upcoming third phase?
Thank you so much. So, looking ahead, when it comes to strengthening collaborations, I think FFA is already doing a very good job, especially with the youth sessions that have been happening. Um, it's also a good trajectory to go into AI, because AI is something that is really affecting the younger generation now, not just in terms of the climate crisis, but it also goes into education, it goes into energy use, as mentioned earlier. It goes into almost every single part of being a youth, a part of the youth. So it's good that we're tackling these discussions now. Um, maybe having more youth sessions with more younger organizations will also be helpful. But it's also important to keep receiving support, may it be technical, may it be financial, may it be any kind of support, just like what we've been getting now, to those groups that are able to mobilize and organize, such as YACAP, such as other, it may be Filipino or other international organizations. There are definitely a lot of them. And maybe even having an FFA youth maybe. Who knows? FFA youth. We shall see. But yeah, just like what Daniel said, keep doing what you're doing because everything has been I see Kyle in the back going, nope. But yeah, everything has been going great. It's just strengthening that collaboration, keeping up the communications that have been going on so far, and trying to connect the discussions or the topics that FFA is already focusing on and relating that to the younger generation. So again, like I mentioned earlier, the thing about finance, banking, when it comes to the younger people, or at least for me, we try not to think about money yet as much as we can. We try to put it off. So younger people don't have banks. They try not to think about money, financing, and everything. But at some point, it's gonna have to happen. So coming up with a way to educate or to give literacy to younger generations would also be helpful. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Irene. More youth session. Perhaps the FFA can develop FFA youth. When I heard Irene proposal, FFA have FFA youths, I'm directly see Asim. I hope Asim not propose FFA elderly. Okay, technical and knowledge support as well as financial also needed for you to come up with energy transition issues, climate issues, etc. Thank you, Irene. Next to Ibu Aldila. So, as a previous question, what should FFA prioritize in next phase to strengthen collaboration, civil society organization with ASEAN member state, also ASEAN Secretariat. Sometimes we have a good connection with ASEAN Secretariat, but pretty challenging with ASEAN member countries. So please tell us how to have a good connection, Secretariat and member countries. Okay, sorry.
Thank you so much, Pak Mahtuf. I hope this is loud enough. I actually want to echo what Daniel here also already mentioned, and also Erin, that keep doing what you're doing. Because I mean, from ACE perspective, we've been observing, and through our, through our connection so far with FFA, we've seen that there's a lot of things that we learned actually from FFA. One of them that I wanted to mention is the policy toolkit for the just energy transition. We've learned about that last year I think in KL, and we found it very interesting. And this is actually one of the thing that we could perhaps have a collaboration on, how to make those kind of toolkit like a living document, and perhaps us, for example, from the Center for Energy, we can contribute in terms of having the, especially from our experience working with other, CSOs network as well. This is how we do it, like with a lot of this continuous dialogue. It's not going to be easy, it's not going to be instant, but when we keep doing it, raising same concern, for example, I think at the end, we can see the progress. I will stop there before Kyle sending me notes again. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's continue our dialogues in all occasion, and we will see what will happen and what will we achieve in the coming future. So we will going to Haiti. Haiti, frankly speaking, sometimes we have a bit challenge to engage with ADB in country level. Not only in one and two countries, but some countries sometimes difficult. Easier to connect with the ADB headquarters sometimes. So how can ADB better institutionalize engagement with the civil society organization beyond one-off consultation, beyond one-off activity, etc. So the second about the FFA prioritize in the third phase from your point of view. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Heidi. We will following up. So move to Bea. As we all know, all initiative, all project, always facing challenges. Please give us the short reflection on the biggest challenges of FFA in second phase, and what's your response on some reflection, aspiration, suggestion from the panelists on the upcoming phase of FFA?
Thank you so much. So I've taken note, FFA Youth, update of the JET policy toolkit, more collaboration with FFI, and of course we'll follow up with ADB engagement. So taking note of all these. So thank you so much for all these, and AI, I heard that as well. So thank you. In terms of challenges, I mean, Heidi is here with us, and of course, ADB is one of our influencing targets, if you might say this, because we work in the financial sector and we have specific targets, financial institutions, regulators, multilateral development banks that include, for example, ADB, platforms like ACE, ASEAN. So as FFA, obviously, we engage with these different stakeholders. A lot of them, fortunately, are very, good alliances, coordinated partnerships like with ACE. We've had some good discussions and feedback from ADB, and we engage with them on an annual basis with the annual meetings of the ADB. But then there are also relationships, of course, that we have with national financial institutions that are benchmarked by our partners at the national level. And those relationships are not always the easiest because we know that many of these financial institutions, when you point out to them their gaps in their policies, they are very sensitive to that. They're like, we don't want to hear what you think about us. Your opinion doesn't matter. But then it doesn't matter that they also don't want us to publish it at the same time. So it's like an irony. If it doesn't matter, why prevent us from publishing it? So this fear of criticism, or this allergic reaction to criticism in many parts of the work that we do, especially with financial institutions, is a challenge that remains. And I think because of the landscape that we see in terms of the geopolitical landscape, when there are, even more investments needed on specific areas that we are working on, like critical minerals, and they are trying to divert financing there, and we are saying something about those investments, or when their governments are pressuring them to continue financing coal, and we are saying you shouldn't do that. Of course, these relationships will remain challenging, but then that's also the core of our work. Interestingly, that's also where a lot of the impact of Fair Finance Asia comes from. When we look at the records of how many policies by financial institutions we've seen changed over the years, you would wonder, like, wow, despite all those difficulties, we still achieve that. That's really interesting, because even though it feels like a battlefield every time you ask financial institutions to change their policies, at the end of the day, if you have a bank that agrees with you, like, okay, I will no longer finance future coal-fired power plants, it's a win. Even though it's a very difficult battlefield, you still win, because for the sake of the environment, you know that such restrictions start to come. When you publish, for example, exclusion lists and say, these are the companies we no longer want you to finance because of the violations they have on specific areas of environmental degradation or human rights, and they actually stop doing that, it's a win. But getting there is actually the challenge. And many of us are also constricted by the landscapes of civic society, shrinking civic spaces where we are working, right? In the many countries where we work. More and more, this is happening. And I'm really proud, extremely proud of the network, because despite all those restrictions that we face, all of you, you have found very innovative and creative ways to still continue to engage, to still continue to push. And that, I think, that perseverance is really important, right? So I think it's a challenge, but at the same time, it's an opportunity, because the more that we have these closed spaces for us to speak, the more that it shrinks, the more there is a need for us to continue the work that we do, especially for those that cannot be represented in those places where we need their voices to be heard.
Okay, thank you, Pia. Thank you all panelists. Now we will move into question and answer session. Asim, the fastest one. I will pick three answer. Yeah. First, of course, Asim, and then Yuki, and then Aziza. So go ahead, Asim. Don't become next panelist, yeah?
Yes. Mufto is getting smarter and smarter day by day. So one comment I would like to share with the ADB, Hedy, and I have a question with for Daniel. So my comment is based on yesterday conversation during the panel. My comment is regarding the trade agreement. I mentioned that the trade agreement is not disclosed. Why I ask this thing? Because the people of Balochistan has the right to know what is the profit sharing, the investors and the facilitators. Among those two parties, what is the profit sharing? And when the extraction is done, who will pay the sale tax, at what level sale tax, and the government will get this money for the benefit of the people. That's the real purpose to knowing about the disclosure of that trade agreement. I was not referring to the ESIA. We know that that is published and it is at the website of the ADB. And briefly more about the ADB role, Fair Finance Pakistan truly acknowledge the knowledge role of the ADB, because we have seen, we have been in contact with you. You provided the agriculture expert, the air quality expert during our Air Sensor International Conference in Islamabad. So your knowledge role is really contributive towards this landscape of the civil society where they want to build the capacity and sharing and learning. That's truly admirable. That's my comment. So now question is, where do you see the Fair Finance International would have a background study or research where we do complement Fair Finance Asia and Fair Finance International for next 2 or 3 influencing years? What are the key points? It's beyond the methodology. We always see that the methodology takes a lot of time and energy. However, there are more independent and national themes which would require attention from the international collaborators. For instance, Asia has a different kind of a problems. For instance, is air pollution. Air pollution is the biggest challenge, but that is not a challenge for the Europe and other northern countries. So such kind of a thematic approach for advocacy and regional influencing or international influencing. For instance, we see that international climate mechanism must be there. So we need a support from the north, from the European side, to influence the multilateral banks to see that when ODA will release, how it will be structured to the national level. And
Okay, please, Yuki.
Okay, hello, I'm Yuki Tanabe, work for Jaxis based in Tokyo. And I have a question to Heidi, because the next ADB's annual meeting will be in Nagoya, Japan, May. And as a Japanese civil society, I'm expecting more and more participatory, meaningful participatory process will be made. And I have a question about the thought of the civil society session. So there are many requests you may receive. So I heard some Japanese NGOs also would like to have a session inside. And do you have any idea to expand the slot for the civil society forum?
Okay, thank you, Yuki Tanabe from Responsive Bank Japan. Next, Aziza, you can use the standing microphone.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone.
Please closer.
Yes.
Yes.
So this is Aziza from Fair Finance Cambodia Coalition. I have 2 points. First is question to Erin as a youth, because I'm very motivated to hear that FFA have engaging with the youth and also considering upcoming FFA youth. So I'm thinking, why not FFC youth? So, because FFA is working through its coalition based at the national level, and there are youths exist there. So, I would like to seek input or advice from Irin as a youth that what should be take into account when CSO like Oxfam or the coalition engaging with youth. Considering of age generation gaps, technologies, knowledge, and also the different thinking of the elders. So anything that you think we should be more cautious and take into account when engaging with the youth. The second point is not a question, but also a comment to echo what Bia mentioned at the setting stage, that knowledge, capacity, and networking is very crucial for the FFA advocacy. And I could observe that networking is existing there at the national level, but the two, knowledge and capacity, are still missing, or the thing that we need to improve more in the upcoming phase, because the capacity to connect the financial issue with all development context in the country is still not exist, and where the CSO level at the country need to learn more, need to engage more, and to build more capacity on how can they connect the financial sector to all development angle. Agriculture, business, or whatsoever, energy, but the knowledge to connect is limited, or I can say it's missing. So this is what we can take into the consideration if we going for the phase 3 of the Fair Finance Asia. Thank you.
Thank you, Aziza. Thank you for the question from Asim, the Pakistani, Yuki Japanese, and Aziza of Cambodian. Now I would like to request a speaker, especially Heidi, to respond some question from Asim and Yuki regarding to the increasing meaningful participation process during CSO session of ADB, how to have any ideas to strengthen this CSO session, and then what do you see FFA as partner to strengthening effort on improving air quality, because for Pakistan case, air pollution is happen right now, and domestic resources cannot solve the challenge. Please, Heidi, times is yours.
All right. So, what should orgs take into account when they engage with the youth? So, from the way that we see it, there are youths in almost every sector that there is. So it's good that we try to really, really expand the issues that we're taking into account when we talk about the youth. For example, there's youths who are working. There are youths in environment. There's some in others, of course, in education. There in almost every sector. So it's about how to relate these issues. How do we make them be more relatable to the youth? For example, we want to talk about, for example, sorry, I can't think of a better one, but for example, flooding, the issue of flooding, which is something that's very prominent in the Philippines. How do we connect that to the youth? For example, you can connect it in the sense of, if there's flooding, you won't have school. If you don't have school, it'll affect your education. If you don't have education, it'll affect your future prospects, etc. So it's about layering down these issues for them to see that, oh, this is something that we have to really care about. Because when it comes to the youth, or at least what we've noticed is, it's not just about educating them that's the issue. They already know about these issues. They're aware of it. It's just there's too many other things that they have on mind for them to work on it. Or for example, there's this concept of masyado ka pang bata, or in English, it's you're too young to make a change or to do anything. So how do we encourage them to step out of that thinking and to encourage them into, oh, you're never too young to do anything, as long as there's collective action, as long as you're organized, and as long as there's proper education as well that's guiding them. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Erin. And then Asia also asking to Aldila about how the possibility ASEAN
Is it
to Bia, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sure. So To Asisa's question regarding phase 3, I think we have to be really smart in thinking about it. Because, yeah, phase 3 is a potential new investment, which is shorter potentially than the usual phase that we have, right? Because we always have 5 years. Maybe this is only 3 years. And that's already in the context of what we're seeing in terms of funding, non-availability of funding. Many bilateral funding are actually not available. That's actually already really good news, right? So you have to be, all of us, not only Fair Finance Cambodia, need to be very smart and strategic in how we think about using those resources in order to address any specific gaps we might still have, but at the same time, moving faster in terms of influencing and advocacy, because in this time of uncertainty, in this time of limited funding, we have to really make sure that we are showing more value for what we as a network can deliver. And I'll keep it short there.
Okay, thank you, Pia. Daniel and Adila, do you willing to respond some or no? Please, if any thought. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. So we're thinking about the key points, right, of connection globally and nationally, regionally, and internationally. I think the point that you're making is critical, given what's coming. But I would also think that if we are thinking about common advocacy agendas with the North and the South and the Northern coalitions and the regional, it's about, I think it's a two-way street. It's about, on one side, it's about understanding what priorities are happening, for example, in Europe. And there we see, for example, the race towards critical minerals. And that's why we have an important focus on that. Last year, FFI published a report on how European banks are financing coal mining in Indonesia. There has to be a connection of how European banks or European investors, financial institutions, are facilitating that, are making that possible. And then we can use the evidence produced nationally to create pressure. And we are all living in a context of shrinking civic space and backsliding of civic rights. But there is still, I would say, there's still space in Europe. They are very sensitive to public pressure and to the media. So there is space for that there too. So that's what I would think about. It's a two-way street. Right?
Thank you, Daniel. One question, yeah. Very last question. Okay. I think the last one.
Yeah.
Because we are in the running out of time. So
Thank
please.
you. Yeah, the question is for Aldila. I remember 3 years ago, I asked you a question on how civil society organizations would be able to help in terms of APAIC 2026 to 2030. And now we have done it. So my question would be again, for now, I think it's gonna be a manifestation as well. How do you see our work in FFA and at the same time in terms of sustainable finance be of help in implementing APAIC 2026 to 2030, especially for posing Gen Z as one of the main pillars of the plan? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kenneth. I will try to be quick, but this is such a big question. I don't know if I can answer it in 5 minutes. But I mean, whenever what has been discussed today with what Bea mentioned, with all of the question, and also Daniel mentioned, we understand that there's a lot of difficulties when we engage with governments and progress. When we're talking about progress, there's Bea also mentioned there's what is it, allergic to criticism. even though we are from the ASEAN framework, right? We are actually within the ASEAN framework, but there's also a lot of difficulties for us as well to move towards what we are envisioned as a center of energy. We are envisioned just an inclusive energy transition, for example, and then having that actually progressing in the ASEAN, the progress are taking like quite a long time on that. So we are quite proud of what we've done with Oxfam, with having embedded the just and inclusive energy transition in our regional framework, for example. Now the question is how to move that forward, right? How to implement. I cannot right away giving like, of course, instant solution in here, for example, but just wanted to give like perhaps a hope, motivation for all of us. For example, last year, before we have this reflected in our APAEC, this wasn't amended, right? This is coming just from our initiative or from our partnership, for example, when we are talking about the topic of GED as well as gender equality. So last year we do have like a gender forum for the first time in ASEAN. Us as the host, for example. But then we do that as our initiative. But then after these become a mandate, for example, this year, as the first implementation of the APAEC, we managed to have this 1 day of gender forum becoming a gender week. We managed to have like more partner, more donor, more to actually, and also, of course, more policymakers to come to.
For each speaker to give a last statement. We will start from the Heidi. If any, we will start from the Heidi. If any closing statement. If not, we are moving to another speaker. It's okay.
Not all the problems are caused by energy.
Yeah, yeah.
Are what we can do in terms of countries and country members. Because a lot of times we influenced by our members, and they are the ones. So it's very difficult, and they are the ones. So it's very difficult as an institution because we have 69 members, and everything we have to get a meeting of members. And also, for example, when the little plan you call it project, so it's 69 members. So that's why to keep that in mind. And also, as staff, we do our best to engage and to be open and share information with the public, particularly civil society and that are important to project quality. So we want you to know that our teams are really sincere in that aspect. The only challenge is that they are sometimes pressed for time, and they are tasked with many responsibilities. So that they can be very
Inclusive future. Thank you.
Thank you. Aldila, Daniel, and Bea. Aldila, Daniel, and Bea.
Okay, 20 seconds. I think what we discussed today, what is hopefully will be matter later on. So the tipping point of influence is that how to make the voice of communities not only heard in the policy discussion, but also how to be the next step actually implemented in the financial decision. Thank you. Implemented in the financial decision. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Think strategically, look for opportunities for global collaboration, regional collaboration, and really fish out for those. It's about looking at the media, but also talking to each other to see what each of us is doing and finding those opportunities and strategically moving forward to produce more research and more advocacy trajectories.
Thank you, Daniel Boyko, Fire Finance International, and then Spea.
Last word. Okay. I said this in my opening remarks. So if you listen there, you would remember this, but I'll repeat it because I think we need to hear this again. Strong organizations are not measured by their performance when the times are good and everything is stable. Strong organizations, strong networks are measured by their resilience in the times of instability. So the fact that we are all facing various levels of instability, whether it's shrinking civic space, it's funding unavailability, and the fact that we are all standing strong shows how resilient the network is. So onwards and forwards.
Thank you, Pia. Give big round of applause to all of us. To wrap up this session, let me share some suggestions. Please open again and again the book of Malcolm Gladwell, The Tipping Point, yeah? To get a sense that ideas, trend, behavior spread like viruses. And we will get a change when we spread ideas to all of us. Thank you so much and apologize if any inconvenience during the session. See you when I see you in the next occasion. Selamat sore. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Heidi.
Mr. Aha
See you
Maftuhan,
around.
thank you very much to all the panelists. I would like to invite all
Group
the
photo,
panelists
group photo.
to have a group photo. Yeah. So I would like to invite Heidi to remain on the screen. Okay, we're going to take a picture on my count. Heidi, don't forget to smile. 3, 2, 1. One more time, please. 3, 2, 1. Thank you very much. It was such a really, really nice session with all the panelists. Thank you very much to our panelists. Miss Aldila Rakima, ASEAN Center for Energy. Miss Heidi from Asian Development Bank. Mr. Daniel from Fair Finance International. Miss Erin from YACAP. And also Miss Bernadette Victorio from Fair Finance Asia. I cannot see, but yeah, the QR code is around the corner, so you can find the, corner, so you can find the, Please fill out the QR code, yeah? Fill out the survey by scanning the QR code displayed on the screen. Of course, your feedback is really highly appreciated for the upcoming event for us. And ladies and gentlemen, as usual, please enjoy the refreshment provided at the foyer area. And we will be back at 4 p.m., yeah? So please be back before the time. And we are going to continue our last session, our very last session this afternoon. So thank you very much. I'm Rani Raj and I'll see you on the next session.
Good evening, Dr. Bill. Can you hear me? Is the audio clear to you? Dr. Bill? Good evening. Yes, we can hear you clear. Maybe you need to speak more loud so we can hear you in here. Hello, Dr. Abid. You can hear me clear. Is it loud? I mean the audio is clear for you. Clear, yeah. Okay.
Greetings, everyone. First, I'd like to thank Fair Finance Pakistan for inviting me to give this talk. My name is Mike Bergen. I'm a professor of environmental engineering at Duke University in Durham, North Carolina. My main area of study is particulate matter, PM 2.5. its sources, and its impacts on health and climate, and have spent a great deal of time developing capacity with partners throughout the world to help solve their air quality problems. The first message I'd like to make is that air pollution is a financial risk. It shortens lives, it reduces worker productivity, it impacts neurological development in children, it drastically increases healthcare costs, and its economic losses, particularly over parts of Asia, has been found to be 5 to 10% of the GDP, which is a huge number. That number is much greater than the impact of natural disasters and of COVID, for example. I'd also like to say that financial investments need to consider their influence on air quality. These investments could be in things like energy, infrastructure, transportation, or industries, and all of these things potentially have dramatic effects on air quality and affects human health. I'd also like to say nearly every investment in some way is influenced by air pollution, since those investments will depend on people, and people are greatly affected by air pollution in many countries throughout the world, particularly in South and Central Asia. The second message I like to make is that in order to manage, you need to determine the levels of air pollutants, and right now I'm talking about PM2.5 in particular. Once you know those levels, you can estimate health impacts, potential costs of those health impacts. You need to make measurements to characterize sources and do what we call source apportionment to figure out where particulate matter is coming from. And also, you need to know when you implement control strategies and do mitigations, you need to have measurements across that period to show that these measurements are actually having an effect in reducing air quality. The third message I'd like to say is now possible to develop actionable approaches to improving air quality. This is over the last 40 years, we've come a long way. We can now attribute air pollution levels to health impacts from specific sources. This is based on measurements. We can also add models that allow us to do sensitivity studies to look at how controlling specific sources improve air quality and improve human health and lower costs, related costs. A take-home message that I'd like to make is the big take-home message is that we do have the scientific tools to solve the air pollution problem. We need collaboration between key government stakeholders, country partnerships, and financial partners. And one thing I'd like to say, and I'd like to reiterate, that finance needs to consider, any financial investments need to consider the potential impacts of air quality from those investments. Also, these key investments are needed with the right partners in countries to work together to solve this air pollution problem and to improve the air. Lastly, I think these financial investments in countries, if done carefully, can be crucial to improving the air quality problem. Thank you very much for having me, and please follow up if anybody has any questions. Again, thank you, Fair Finance Pakistan, for inviting me.
Good afternoon, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to invite all the participants to kindly make their way back to their seats as we're going to continue the upcoming session in a few moments. Once again, we would like to invite all the participants to come back to their seats, and we're going to continue our upcoming session in 3 minutes. Bapak dan Ibu sekalian, kami persilahkan Bapak dan Ibu untuk dapat kembali menempati tempat duduk karena sesaat lagi rangkaian acara akan segera kita lanjutkan. And you're also welcome to bring your refreshment into the ballroom. And you can continue enjoying them while we are continuing our session. Thank you very much. Siapakah nama dia? Sering ditanya ganti-ganti pajak. Jadi yang kayak ini ada lagi ya. Iya, Padang Jakarta tapi dia, maksudnya dari kecil bapaknya juga dari sini. Ladies and gentlemen, all the participants, we would like to invite all the participants who are still outside the ballroom to kindly make their way back to their seats as we're going to continue our event immediately. Once again, we would like to invite all the participants to come back to their seats as we're going to continue our upcoming session, which is also our final session this afternoon immediately. Thank you very much. Bapak dan Ibu sekalian, kami mengundang Bapak dan Ibu untuk dapat kembali menempati tempat duduk. Dan bagi Bapak dan Ibu yang masih berada di luar, dipersilahkan untuk memasuki ruangan karena rangkaian acara akan segera dilanjutkan. Terima kasih. Mungkin dia speaker ya kali ya, soalnya. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the final session of our afternoon. And welcome back to Fair Finance Asia General Assembly 2026. Are you still here mentally? Really? So can I hear your voice? Semangat pagi. Pagi, pagi, pagi. Okay, semangat pagi. One more time, semangat pagi. Thank you very much. A big round of applause for all of us. Boleh tepuk tangan yang meriah. Yep, our final session for today is entitled Beyond ESG, Emerging Lessons from Pakistan's Responsible Finance Journey. And this is also live stream online, so I would like to say hi to our online participants. If you have any questions, please feel free to write it down on the chat box, and we will facilitate your questions later to the speakers. And ladies and gentlemen, this session will be moderated by Miss Dina Hamuda from Fair Finance International. And this session will explore practical lessons from Pakistan's experience in advancing responsible finance while drawing perspective from academia, civil society, and regional partners. So please welcome our moderator for this session, Miss Dina Hamuda.
Good afternoon, everyone. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My name is Dina, and I'm the communications lead for Fair Finance International. It's an honor to be facilitating this panel discussion today. Our session title is A Deliberate Provocation: How can responsible finance in Asia move beyond ESG? A decade of FFGI-driven work has strengthened transparency, disclosure, and accountability across the banking sector. But the challenges now confronting financial institutions like air pollution, industrial transition, biodiversity loss, public health, and inequality are systemic risks that stretch beyond the boundaries of conventional ESG frameworks. Sometimes we notice that ESG has a marketing layer. CSR is relabeled as ESG, reputational value is created, and sustainability narratives are polished, while the harms that matter most remain unpriced, such as water and air contamination, land grabbing, and human rights violations. The result is what we might call a halo economy, where strong ESG ratings coexist with real-world environmental and societal damage, because scores reward disclosure, policies, and procedures more than measurable outcomes on the ground. Even mature markets learned this the hard way. The US Securities and Exchange Commission, through its climate and ESG task force, penalized greenwashing when it couldn't be proven. Regulators shifted from policing language to testing substance, culminating in the SEC 2023 names rule, which requires funds using ESG-themed labels to invest at least 80% of their assets in line with those claims. The lesson is universal. Credibility does not come from ESG labels, but rather being able to prove real-life outcomes. Beyond ESG means repurposing finance around impact, not image. It means shifting from single materiality focused on how the world affects the bank to a broader understanding of a double or impact materiality, which also asks how the bank's financing affects our air, our water, and our communities. It means financing outcomes rather than labels, linking capital's incentives and pricing to verified performances, whether that is reducing pollution, protecting public health, or securing decent jobs, and ensuring there are consequences when harm is done. Pakistan offers a live case study of exactly this shift through two Fair Finance Pakistan streams. First, the FFGI assessment benchmarking 7 commercial banks against international responsible finance standards, and the Pakistan Clean Air Finance Framework, which reframes air pollution as a material, financial, economic, and prudential risk linking pollution-intensive sectors, industrial transition, public health, and financial stability. The lesson for Asian countries in the network: responsible finance can evolve beyond policy assessment towards supporting systemic real economy transition, which is a shared regional agenda. So without further ado, let us learn more about our speakers who have joined us both online and in person. First, we have Dr. Abid Aman Burki, one of Pakistan's foremost development economists and a recipient of the President's Izazi Fazilat, where I'm very sorry if I'm mispronouncing the name. Please forgive me. So Dr. Burki's work on poverty, inequality, and food policy within the World Bank, UNICEF, and WHO eliminates who bears the cost of environmental and economic harm. So welcome, Dr. Burki. I think Dr. Burki is joining us online. Next, we have Dwi Rahayu Ningrum. Dwi is leading the Fair Finance project at the Prakarsa, Indonesia. She advances ESG integration across Indonesia's financial sector through research, advocacy, and capacity building, bringing a Southeast Asian perspective on making finance fairer and more accountable. Welcome. I'd like to also introduce Mr. Mir Shai Mazar Balush. With over 2 decades in parliamentary administration and public sector leadership at the Senate of Pakistan and the Pakistan Institute for Parliamentary Services, he brings deep expertise in governance, policy, and legislative support, an essential institutional lens on responding to environmental and social risks. Welcome, Mr. Mir. Next, we have Mr. Asim Jafri, the country program lead at Fair Finance Pakistan. Last but not least, we have Professor Michael H. Bergen. And Professor Michael is an atmospheric scientist and environmental engineer. He's a leading academic voice on how air pollution, particularly particulate matter, affects climate, health, energy systems, then develops citizens' sensors that democratize air quality data. Dr. Michael has sent us a video that we will watch at the beginning of this conversation, and then we can listen to our panelists.
Greetings, everyone. First, I'd like to thank Fair Finance Pakistan for inviting me to give this talk. My name is Mike Bergen. I'm a professor of environmental engineering at Duke University in Durham, North Carolina. My main area of study is particulate matter, PM2.5, its sources and its impacts on health and climate, and I've spent a great deal of time developing capacity with partners throughout the world to help solve their air quality problems. The first message I'd like to make is that air pollution is a financial risk. It shortens lives, it reduces worker productivity, it impacts neurological development in children, it drastically increases healthcare costs, and its economic losses, particularly over parts of Asia, has been found to be 5 to 10% of the GDP, which is a huge number. That number is much greater than the impact of natural disasters and of COVID, for example. I'd also like to say that financial investments need to consider their influence on air quality. These investments could be in things like energy, infrastructure, transportation, or industries, and all of these things potentially have dramatic effects on air quality and affects human health. I'd also like to say nearly every investment in some way is influenced by air pollution, since those investments will depend on people, and people are greatly affected by air pollution in many countries throughout the world, particularly in South and Central Asia. The second message I like to make is that in order to manage air pollution, you need to measure it. You need to determine the levels of air pollutants, and right now I'm talking about PM2.5 in particular. Once you know those levels, you can estimate health impacts, potential costs of those health impacts. You need to make measurements to characterize sources and do what we call source apportionment to figure out where particulate matter is coming from. And also, you need to know when you implement control strategies and do mitigations, you need to have measurements across that period to show that these measurements are actually having an effect in reducing air quality. The third message I'd like to say is now possible to develop actionable approaches to improving air quality. This is over the last 40 years, we've come a long way. We can now attribute air pollution levels to health impacts from specific sources. This is based on measurements. We can also add models that allow us to do sensitivity studies to look at how controlling specific sources improve air quality and improve human health and lower costs, related costs. A take-home message that I'd like to make is, the big take-home message is that we do have the scientific tools to solve the air pollution problem. We need collaboration between key government stakeholders, country partnerships, and financial partners. And one thing I'd like to say, and I'd like to reiterate, that finance needs to consider, any financial investments need to consider the potential impacts of air quality from those investments. Also, these key investments are needed with the right partners in countries to work together to solve this air pollution problem. and to improve the air. Lastly, I think these financial investments in countries, if done carefully, can be crucial to improving the air quality problem. Thank you very much for having me, and please follow up if anybody has any questions. Again, thank you, Fair Finance Pakistan, for inviting me.
So after setting the academic framing for this conversation by Professor Michael, I would like to move us to a more contextual framing. So we turn to Mr. Asim to open the Pakistan's journey.
Thank you very much, Dina. Good afternoon, distinguished panelists, colleagues from Fair Finance Asia community, and everyone who has joined us online. It is a privilege to welcome you today discussion Beyond ESG, Emerging Lessons from Pakistan's Responsible Finance Journey for Asia. Let me begin by clarifying what we mean by beyond ESG. We are not questioning the value of ESG. Environmental, social, and governance framework have helped bring sustainability into financial policies, boardrooms, and public reporting. But we must now ask whether ESG, as currently practiced, is sufficient for the scale and complexity of the challenges confronting Asia. A bank may publish a sophisticated sustainability report and align itself with international standards. But does this tell us whether its financing is reducing pollution, protecting people's health, addressing inequality, or supporting industries and workers through transition? In other words, are financial institutions financing sustainability or simply reporting it? This question sits at the heart of Pakistan's responsible finance journey. Fair Finance Pakistan has used the Fair Finance Guide International methodology to assess the policies of the major commercial banks. Our latest assessment covers 7 leading institutions across the Pakistan with these themes: climate change, human rights, labor rights, gender equality, and others. This work has created an important foundation for evidence-based engagement with banks and regulators. It has enabled us to move beyond the journal sustainability claims and examine what financial institutions actually commit to and where significantly policy gaps remains exist. However, it has also exposed a deeper limitation. A bank may recognize climate risk while remaining silent on air pollution. It may disclose emissions from its offices while providing little information about the environmental and social impacts of its finance activities. Financial inclusion may be measured through the number of accounts opened without asking whether finance is reducing inequality or strengthening the economic resilience. The challenge, therefore, is not simply inadequate disclosure, it is continued separation of environmental harm, public health, industrial competitiveness, inequality, and financial stability, even though these risks are deeply interconnected in the real economy. Air pollution illustrates this challenge particularly well. In Pakistan, air pollution is usually treated as an environmental enforcement issue or a seasonal public health emergency. Yet its consequences extend across worker productivity, household expenditure, agriculture output, supply chains, industrial competitiveness, and public finances. These effects can ultimately influence borrowers, repayment capacity, business continuity, asset quality, and a resilience of the financial system. Air pollution remains largely invisible on financial balance sheets. At the same time, many pollution-intensive industries are structurally locked into obsolete technologies, carbon-intensive energy, weak environmental enforcement, and limited access to the affordable transition finance. Asking these industries, particularly SMEs, to adopt cleaner technologies without addressing financing costs, technical capacity, and market incentives will not deliver a credible transition. This recognition led Fair Finance Pakistan to complement its FFGI assessment with the ASIC Pakistan Mitigation Series and the development of the Pakistan Clean Air Finance Framework, which begins with the clear propositions: if air pollution creates measurable economic and financial consequences, it should be recognized as a material financial risk, not treated merely as an environmental externality. The framework seeks to connect four areas that are too often addressed separately: scientific evidence on pollution sources, the transition needs of pollution-intensive industries, and the exposure and decision-making practices of the financial institutions, and the policies and financial instruments required to make cleaner production technically possible and financially viable. The three lessons are emerging from Pakistan's experience. First, policy commitments must be connected to portfolio level outcomes. The next generation of responsible finance assessment must ask not only whether a policy exists, but whether it changes the financial decisions and produces measurable outcomes in the real economy. Second, environmental and social risk cannot be assessed in isolation. Air pollution is simultaneously an environmental, health, labor, inequality, competitiveness, and financial issue. Our methodologies must become capable of recognizing these connections. Third, transition finance must be both practical and just. It must provide industries with viable pathways out of structurally locked in while protecting workers, communities, public health. Finance should not be labeled green or transitional without credible safeguards, accountability, and measurable impact. Fair Finance Pakistan Coalition, which creates the opportunities and responsibility. Our role extends beyond the evaluation, what financial institution says. We can help shape the evidence bank can use, the questions asked to the regulator, the condition attached to the transition finance, and the accountability mechanism through which the effective communities influence financial decisions. Pakistan experience is not being presented as a completed model. It is an evolving journey, from policy assessment to systemic risk analysis, from disclosure to implementation, and from institutional commitment to the real economy transformation. I look forward to learning from our distinguished panelists and the wider Fair Finance Asia community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Asim, for taking us along this evolving journey. I think we can start with our first question to the rest of the panelists. So, how is responsible finance evolving beyond traditional ESG approaches in Asia? First, we can hear from Mr. Mir. In 2 minutes, and yeah, I will look at Kyle. I don't know where Kyle is.
Thank you, Dina,
panelist.
for
Yeah.
providing me opportunity to share my thoughts about the responsible banking, because as Asim just defined, that responsible banking is just not adhering to the ESGs. Because the banks, they might be adhering to the ESG, but now the scope of the responsible banking is getting wider and wider day by day. Because while being a responsible bank, they have to assist the evolving situation, the risk management, the resilience, and the long-term value creation at the same time. And we have to see the climate risk as well at the same time. And also see the biodiversity losses, human rights, and supply chain resilience, and at the same time, social inclusion, because social inclusion is very important because we don't want anyone to left behind. So the responsible banking mean it is a bank for each and every individual of the society. Either it could be a female, it's someone from the marginal segment of the society, or a youth, or whosoever. And if you talk about the Pakistan case and looking beyond, if we look into the Pakistan some 4 years ago, 4 years back, the climate change, the climate resilience, or ESG, what knows the part of our national discourse. But what happened? The floods which we received in 2022, it changed the whole discourse. The conversation on the national level changed. Everybody start taking the climate change very seriously. And at that time, the central bank, the regulators, they came into action because they forced the banks to adopt the ESG manuals. They have asked them to look into the climate-related financing. And at the same time, they started making their own manuals. They've started making the climate financing and the green taxonomy and the green guidelines. These were the things which we might have heard it only in a conference, but all of a sudden we saw everything was happening. So all these things happened just because of one challenge which is because now we know we are the one who would be facing the consequences of the climate change, and it's a reality. It's not just a story which as a kid they have told us. I think I'm done with the 2 minutes.
Thank you so much. I think that's less than 2 minutes. We can then look online, and I would invite Dr. Berkey to also maybe reflect on the same question. So how is responsible finance evolving beyond traditional ESG approaches in Asia?
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. And thank you for inviting me to be part of this panel. And I know that the detailed exposition and the answer to this question. And well, I have actually looked at the bank sort of compliance to responsible banking in the sense that I have evaluated their performance. And based on that, I think what Asim just pointed out, I think this is exactly what we see. And I think what we have seen in Pakistan is that Pakistan reflects like on ESG broadly, and there is a clear progress if we look at Pakistan's performance. Let's say we did an assessment based on 2021 data and now on 2025 data. So basically, this indicates the trend that in which direction we are heading. So what we find here is that there is a clear progress in governance, in transparency, labor rights, and gender equality. So these are things where the banks have done very well. Because all the assessed banks, they show positive policy momentum. But I think the challenge remains that sustainability policies are stronger for banks' own operation than for what they finance. So the investing companies and the borrowers, I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done. Secondly, climate risk, biodiversity, and human rights. I think we are still not consistently integrated into lending and investment decisions. So I would say that policy development has progressed faster than implementation. Now, I think this is time that we integrate the other aspects, especially the environmental aspects, into the banking system, because as highlighted by my colleague, Pakistan is one of the most affected countries in terms of climate change and air pollution. And we have already seen the impact in different ways. And I think Professor Bergen has also pointed that out, and the conference that affect the climate change and also air pollution. I think it's the time we focus on key aspects and move away from the standard ESG approaches. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Berkey. Dewey, would you like to come in also about the same question?
Okay, thank you, Dina. So to respond to the first question about how responsible finance evolving beyond the traditional ESG approaches, so we see that responsible finance in Asia should evolving beyond disclosure itself. So we see that now in the region there are many taxonomy development across Asia, and it is a sign. It's a good sign on how sustainable finance could also connected with the disclosure and transparency and accountability, but we also have to make sure that sustainable finance, responsible finance is beyond that. How these commitments of sustainability is also integrated into the actual investment and financing decision. So it can be reflected by the exclusion list, for example, due diligence on borrowers, including the human rights due diligence, conditions attached to loans, and also sectoral policies on high-risk sector financing that ensure the stringent safeguard for the high-risk sector. For example, the coal mining, large plantation, energy, not just published in sustainability report on the website, but also how we translate it into the financing or investment practice. So in short, the responsible finance in Asia is moving from ESG as corporate virtue through ESG as disclosure compliance toward ESG as a systemic risk infrastructure that embedded in actual financing decision.
Thank you so much, Dewey. Maybe we close also this discussion with Austin before we move to the next topic. Go ahead.
Usually, the traditional ESG format, the banks were having the conventional approach. Always says it's internal documents. Always says we assess properly. We don't need to publish it because regulator doesn't say or doesn't give the scope to publish it. Don't mandate us. So such kind of excuses making the things very limited, and they are very fearful that not to give any kind of a disclosure, not on their newsletters or website or any other areas. So such kind of a phrases or sentences which they mentioned give us the room that talk to the regulator. Why you stop them? And the regulator says, no, we don't. But there is no specific regulations are on the paper exist which give them the direction to publish those reports or internal documents. So it's a chicken and egg situation. And the regulator coming from the perspective to save their skin, to not to be a bad name, and the bankers don't want to have any bad name, then who is the suffering? So ESG is not giving the benefit to the depositors or consumer or citizen. So suffering goes to the depositors ultimately. In any form of the policy or whatever the negligence they do is suffered by the people. So we call it don't finance as the pollution, because everyone knows ultimately anybody in the home will get sick, and who will bear the cost? Out of pocket, the cost will be borne by the woman. So it's a gender lens. We have to look at how much the money household expenditure will go to for the treatment of this illness. Asthma is one of the conditions that comes with the air pollution. Children under the age of 5 suffered because of the air pollution. So who is financing those areas? The banks. Recently, we developed the portal where we are highlighting the 22 cities. Just mentioning that how much the exposure A bank or a B bank has in that particular city, financing to the cement factory, 20% of their financial lending, a textile sector, and other sectors. So it's mean ultimately you are financing and you are calling it as environmental safe, socially safe, and governance is well respected. So it's a conventional approach.
Thank you so much, Mr. Asim. And I think this moves us nicely to the next point, which is, should air pollution and industrial transition be recognized as a material financial risk within responsible banking frameworks? And around this point, I would like to invite first Dr. Berkey to reflect on that, maybe from an academic point of view. And then we will hear from Mr. Mir from the policy side and from the legal side, and see how can we complement these two perspectives.
Okay, thank you. I would look at it in this way, that markets often see air pollution as an environmental externality. I think this is why intervention. But if you go a step further, so economists recognize it as a source of financial risk, because it ultimately affects productivity, it affects profitability, the asset value, and the stability of the financial system itself. So there are three reasons why air pollution and industrial transition have become financially material risk. And the first one is that air pollution is mentioned. I think we all know that there are high environmental regulation, there is more litigation, there is higher compliance costs, and there are reputational risks. All these things, they change the consumer preference. So I think that's my first point. Secondly, the industrial transition creates, I think, transition risk. And there are three aspects that can be highlighted in industrial transition. Firstly, there are many sectors like energy, like cement, we have steel, transport, chemicals. So we must transition to cleaner production. See, product that fails to have this, so they think they become less competitive, or even they are standing. So I think responsible finance therefore requires that financial institutions to assess whether borrowers have credible transition strategy. So, and thirdly, I think we need financially clear, because air pollution affects labor productivity as Austin has pointed out, has cost. We also have supply chain and regional economic components. So industrial transition affects asset value, cash flow, and long-term profitability. So these are exactly the type of risks that responsible finance frameworks are designed to identify and manage. So why does this matter for now? I think why it matters for financial responsible financing. I think responsible financing should move beyond full screening projects. And I think it should integrate air pollution and transition risk into credit assessment. We already have criteria. So we are suggesting that these additional aspects should also be integrated. Secondly, we also need to incorporate this into portfolio management. And thirdly, engage clients on transition planning. And finally, finance cleaner technology and pollution control strategy. So this will do responsible finance is no longer only about doing less harm. It is about identifying financially real environmental risks and allocating capital toward resilient economic transition. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Berkey. Mr. Mieto.
Okay, as Dr. Berkey told us about the air pollution being the part of the financial risk or the credit risk, because while giving the lending the loans to the creditor, one has to take it into account. Due to the air pollution, the cost of medical, it would enhance. And at the same time, the worker who would be working, their working hour would be reduced. And at the same time, during the winter time, due to this thing, due to the air quality, the business hours are reduced. And even in many cities across the Punjab, they enforce the smart lockdown, the closure of the early businesses, the closure of the offices, work from homes, and so many things, which result into a less working hours and the less production. So that's why it is very much mandatory that it has to be the part of the green taxonomy and the part of the credit risk. And on the policy side, regarding the disclosure, the Constitution of Pakistan, there's an article 19A, which make it mandatory to the access to the information with certain limitations. Of course, if there is a national interest or something like that, apart from that, our constitution is given the access to the information. And at the same time, all the provincial assembly and even the national parliament, they have done the RTI laws. They have made a Pakistan Information Commission. And if somebody need any information, they ask that certain organization. And if they don't provide, then they can go to the commission and then file a petition. And apart from that, the parliament, it has also taken a greater responsibility. And if somebody wants some information and thinks something has not done, it can submit a public petition through the Senate of Pakistan. There's a website, you just go there and you give your petition. So they would make sure that the certain petition, the information or whatsoever is the position, it would be there. And apart from that, there are positions which are not mandatory, like the State Bank has to make it mandatory, all the banks, to be the part of the Sunwai app, which is an app which asks for the public complaint resolution. And if someone submit a complaint, it will go to the State Bank as well. And if they don't follow this and did not resolve this complaint, the State Bank would come and ask. And why it has not been done. Even it has given it's on the website, it has the bank to publicize their complaint management system and the information they are trying, but it's a financial sectors and the regulator has certain limitations. So we can say this, the will is there, but the things need to be mandatory. Until and unless we don't make the disclosure mandatory, we won't be seeing the greater transparency, but it's the beginning. And I'm sure in a couple of years, the things would be in much better position.
Thank you, Mr. Mir, so much. I think speaking about the beginnings and speaking about learnings and speaking about the different entries to tackle the problem, it would be useful to maybe listen to the practical lessons that has been generated through the FFGI assessment process, and that could be beneficial to all Fair Finance coalitions. So I would like to invite Mr. Awesome to share with us some learnings and some key lessons, and maybe afterwards, you can also come in on that.
Learning from the FFG assessments. We done the first assessment in 2023 and now on the second phase for the 7 commercial banks. And during the first time, we have not been accepted by the commercial bank, and we had a very not a good critique. So civil society, who has the mandate to criticize us or assess us. So after having the role from the parliament committee, when we published it, and then they call upon the State Bank governor for asking the question that why the banks are low in score in the area of human right and climate change and other themes. And that's the journey which were very slow paced and then become a movement. And afterwards, we have built a good engagement with the regulator and the other commercial banks, but still we have some challenges with the commercial banks, individual people who are managing their portfolio with a very narrow or a very restricted eye on the development of the in the area of environment and social governance. Now, with the 7 commercial bank assessment, we went through all the commercial banks again with the policy scoring and the responses they gave us on the methodology, and we responded back. We have seen a very little improvement, although we have also collected the media citations from their CEOs and the other managers, which they claim in that particular date, we pledged this to stop the fossil fuel financing and other elements they highlighted, contributing to have a more robust climate change policy for the commercial banks. However, when we assess and we collect their responses, we experience the same practice. This is the internal document. We are not supposed to share with the external audience. And such kind of excuses, which is not be accepted by our methodology or with our coalition members. We need to have disclosed policies and stronger commitment from your side. So we learned that the commercial banks, if we take them their leadership point of view, it's there. However, when we see that translating the vision into the actionable points or a plan of the commercial banks, the spirit gone away somewhere, which when we ask them, they don't have a concrete answer for this. So, but the journey is continue, and we reach to the point where we are now building a new momentum. When we say the Pakistan needs a Pakistan Clean Air Finance Framework, which is talking to the regulators and talking to the other stakeholders, especially the industry people and the academia and the policy side. We also learned that why the IFC and other multilateral institutions are pushing the regulators, especially the southern part of the world, where we need a green taxonomy. But the green taxonomy does not have a uniform kind of a content that produced for the country, and giving the good benchmark to the industry that must follow that. And it is not science-based. So policy again is the question of blind, not have a concrete data coming from the science. So it's again this big jargon or big claims and political commitment. So we are not living in a phase or in a AI world that we will trust on your political narrative. We trust the science. We trust that these emissions are coming from the coal burning. These emissions are coming from the construction, overcrowded construction in the urban setting, and urban forest is just finished. And we are not accepting your argument that the rural area, the medicine factory is contaminating the rural water, where the nearby communities affected because of the malaria and other issues, and high methane level is hitting to their household expenditure. So it's a matter of the people's life. So finance cannot ignore the people's life. So our assessment is also talking with the science and the data, that which you were saying in 2023 that Fair Finance Pakistan is saying this policy is blind. So where is the evidence? Now we have the evidence. So we are coming from the science. So now tell us what next you wanted. So fix this problem. So fixing this problem document is not clarifying only the commitment is not giving us the solution. We need a risk frameworks while checking out all the risk. So tell us the lending practice. So tell us which industry have the wet scrubber, which industry have a dry scrubber. When they emit the fumes in the air, they will be not harming the nearby community. talking from 0 to the 100 kilometer. All our fumes are traveling in the air. So it's the rich people or the poor people or the least. The poverty is also coming from because of the air pollution. So that's it, coming from the science.
Okay, I want to add one thing regarding the commitment from the part of the state of the government. Last year, there was a provision which was added to our constitution under Article 9A, in which it was clearly mentioned that every individual has the right of clean, healthy, and sustainable environment. It shows the commitment from on the part of the government, because if something is inserted in the constitution, it's mean everybody has to work about it. So there is a commitment from the highest level, and there are very few countries in the world which has this such kind of provision in their constitution. So due to the climate risk which Pakistan is facing, there is a commitment at the highest level, either it's the government or the CEOs or from, but we need to convert it at the down level as well, because there are certain managers which think that if they provide, they are apprehensive whenever you ask about any kind of information. Even if you ask them what time you would be coming to their offices, they would say it's confidential. So we need to work, and their commitment is there, and with such kind of advocacy, and like we had the Isaac Pakistan series, and it's the kind of advocacy which connected the academia, the media, the government, the parliament, and the bankers, all the institutions. So it kind of created an environment which everybody would be knowing this is for the profit of everyone. It's not a loss for anyone, because if the environment would be clean, so there would be fewer credit risks for the banks as well, and it would be beneficial for the people, and even it would be beneficial for the businesses as well.
Thank you so much. Dewey, I think you can also reflect on the last question, but I would like to add as well, how can financial institutions better integrate science, public policy, and investment decision-making when addressing systemic environmental risks? So you can share with us your thoughts on maybe both questions.
Thank you, Dina. I supposed to tell a long story about a responsive bank journey on doing bank assessment, but I have to answer another question. So yeah, for the question about how can financial institutions better integrate science, public policy, and also investment decision making in on systemic environmental risk. So I think what Fair Finance Pakistan Coalition bring on the advocacy of Pakistan's clean air finance framework. That explicitly, we don't have it in Indonesia yet. So I think Pakistan is going ahead of the Indonesia itself. For Indonesia, what we do have now is the baseline environmental regulatory architecture. So this is to measure the emission quality standards for coal-fired power plants, and also for the environmental and social impacts assessment. So the clearest gap here is the captive coal power plant, which now is being built to support the industrial facilities, for example, the nickel smelters, that this is of national grid. This expansion of the captive coal power plants reach about 15.2 gigawatts. With the total capacity projected near 26.2 gigawatts, that it is putting captive coal at nearly 40% of Indonesia's coal generation outside the state utility and independent power producers. So, in another side, we also have Presidential Regulation number 112, released in 2022 about the captive plants that must cut emission intensity by 35% within 10 years. But the regulation grants exemption for national strategic projects. And there is currently no public monitoring framework to verify the compliance. If we also see the Indonesia and Pakistan situation, where the pollution in Pakistan for the PM, it reached 70 PM 2.5. It's the average in 2025 is 76.3 micrograms per meter cubic. It's 14 times than WHO guideline. Meanwhile, Indonesia national average was 30 micrograms per cubic meters, about 6 times the guideline. So if we also see the source of the pollution in Pakistan, it mostly by vehicle emission, crop stubble burning, and also brick kilns. Meanwhile, in Indonesia, we also have coal plants, dry season peatland fire, smoke from Sumatra and Kalimantan, and also a captive plant, coal captive plant from industrial area in nickel mining. So we see that Pakistan has more unified crisis geography that actually make the financial risk case it is easier to build than Indonesia that is fragmented one. So I would like also touch upon that what exists in Indonesia. This is climate and carbon focus. So the Central Bank of Indonesia already have the green transition roadmap. And OJK's also mandate for the financial institutions to have the climate risk disclosure that's starting from 2027, which Responsible Bank Indonesia Coalition also advocate for this on how the financial institutions also align their disclosure into IFRS S2 standard. Yeah, I think I can stop here.
Thank you so much, Dewey, and thank you for sharing these insights and this information also from the context in Indonesia. I think we can look back online to Dr. Berkey and ask also for academic insights into how financial institutions can better integrate science, public policy, and investment into their decision making when addressing systemic environmental risks. Dr. Berkey, over to you.
Well, I think environmental risk are systemic, economic, and financial risk, as I mentioned earlier. So integrating science, public policy, and finance is essential for managing this effectively. So there are key points we can highlight. Firstly, I think science should drive financial decision making. And as Professor Burton has also pointed out, I think what we need is that we need more numbers. I think we need from finance, like what is the climate scenario in country? Air quality data, I think accurate air quality data that is now increasingly possible with cheaper sensor technology. And we also need biodiversity assessment and water risk analysis. So these are numbers which can inform credit appraisal by the bank, investment decisions, and portfolio risk management. So this is how science can drive financial decision making. Secondly, I think public policy is also important to provide clear and predictable signals. Because if we don't have clear policy, so I think that is a problem because the implementation becomes increasingly. So science identifies the risk, public policy creates the incentive for markets to respond. So stable policy on climate, pollution control, like renewable energy and industry transition, they reduce uncertainty and those will create long-term sustainable development. So finally, I think we should move from policy commitment to implementation, and especially with reference to the bank. So I think the assessment in Pakistan suggests that encouraging progress defining governance and disclosure, but environmental sustainability is one of the weakest areas in which the scores are very, very low. Especially on climate change, it's almost zero. And on biodiversity, I think it's only maybe about 10 to 15% of the bank which have some policy in place. So we are far away from the target. So just look into the science, identifying the risk, public policy set the direction, and financial institution determine where capital flows. So responsible finance, those are factors that need to be worked with. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Doctor. My next question will be addressed to Mr. Asim and Mr. Mir. And it is, where should inequality and just transition considerations be incorporated within future responsible finance methodologies? 2 minutes, please.
So, in the context of the inequality, whenever we got the chance to talk to the bank managers, so they understand the word inequality, and they always says, we also consider as a risk, but I asked them how the core methodology for risk assessment covered this area of inequality. So they often refer it as a footnote of our credit risk assessment methodology. So it's not a footnote for the risk assessment. It is the real issue, and we need to take it into the account when you assess the lending or develop the portfolio for any industry. For instance, how it translates to the community. That is the area where the income of the poor man or a woman eaten by the inequality because of the air pollution, for instance. Whenever they get sick, they go to the hospital, and the cost of going to the hospital and buying or purchasing the medicine, it is out of pocket expenditure. And it also coming, if it is coming from the rural side, then the basic health unit, also the expenditure covered by the government, if it is talking to the Pakistani context. And if it's a tertiary care hospital facility, it also costs. So without thinking that this industry, without using the wet scrubber or a dry scrubber, emitting the open air, in ambient air, the fumes of the pollution will not harm to the society. It is not that case. So I repeatedly says it's an inequality. So buying the medicine and other household expenditure, making them more vulnerable to the extreme level of the vulnerable. So the income is not coming from the banking. So bank is financing to the industry, which is causing the pollution, is impacted the human health. So it's one of the area where we see that the inequality should be the part of the core methodology of the commercial banks when they lend the money as a financial risk. Textile sector, the cement, stone crushing industry, the petrochemical industry, the agriculture crop burning. So these are the very much around us, these industries. Wherever we live, we see these industries. So finance is always giving them the lending without taking care of the human health. That's the thing.
In Pakistan, the commercial banks, while dispersing their loans, there is a very great inequality among the consumers. Because its equality is not only the gender basis or the segment of the weaker society, it's on the basis of the geographical location as well. For example, if I'm living in a metropolitan or a capital city, I would be getting 10 calls from the banks asking me to make a credit card or opening their account. But at the same time, if a person is living a far-flung area with the same income group, being in the same income group or occupation, they won't be calling them or giving them any kind of a credit facility. At the same time, when it's come for the loaning, like there is a regulation that the politically exposed person, PEP, we call it as a PEP, which the senior government officials and the parliamentarians, even they are the part of it. They shy away from giving us the loans because they said you are a politically exposed person, and if they want to give us a loan, they would we have to sign so many disclosures. So there is a greater inequality. And when it's come to the, you just think about when it's come to the female or the other part of the society, segment of the society, what would be the situation? And even if when the government was asking them, because after the 2022 earthquake, then government wanted to be more climate friendly, they have asked all the commercial banks to give loans for the solarization of the houses. And when they made it mandatory, then they start giving loans to the consumers. Otherwise, they were not giving the loans to them. And even for the EVs, they are forcing the banks and the houses. Without the mandatory clause, the banks are not ready to give loans, any kind of loans to certain individuals. They are only interested in the giving loans to the big industries, big players. So this is something which need to be taken in care. And even many times, this thing has been debated in the parliament, in the standing committees, and every time the commercial bank with certain excuse, and even the central bank, they say this is something the internal matter and they cannot do much about it. So this is a worrying situation, and still the work is going on. I hope in a few years' time the things would be different, but this is a major hurdle which need to address.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mir and Mr. Asim. I also want to make sure that we still have space for conversation and discussion with our audience, online and offline. So maybe I'll just ask one last question and then we can open the floor for questions. So looking ahead, what opportunities exist for Fair Finance Asia to collaborate on the next generation of responsible finance, transition finance, and sustainable investment? So if every panelist can have 2 minutes to answer these questions, then we can open the floor for questions. We can start with Dr. Berkey, then we can listen from Dewey, and then Asim and Mir.
The next wave of responsible finance is not about developing more ESG policies. I think it's about ensuring that finance supports a just, low carbon and resilient transition. And there are perhaps maybe two or three opportunities which maybe Fair Finance Asia can act on. I think we should shift from policy benchmarking to implementation benchmarking. And secondly, I think we can develop a shared regional agenda on emerging risks. For example, we can collaborate on methodology and capacity building, especially for transition finance, for biodiversity, and nature-related risks. And thirdly, I think we can strengthen regional knowledge, especially on climate, biodiversity, and air quality, and we can have policy dialogue. So I think these are key points that I would like to highlight because Asia faces many of the same sustainability challenges, and working together through Fair Finance Asia can help ensure that responsible finance evolves from better policies to better investment decisions and better development outcomes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dina. So first, I think is cross-learning exchange between Fair Finance Asia Network, both in bank assessment and also the case studies. We can learn from each other on how we can engage with banks with the bank assessment, and also how we can translate, how we can develop an impactful case studies that can give more impacts to the improvement of financial institutions policies, financing policies. And then the second is revisiting the methodology of the FFGI. So we also think that FFGI methodology is used to across the network for the comparability. But there's a question also that should FFGI should stay a single global comparability tool, or it can evolve to support the optional deeper modules on systemic risk. For example, Pakistan with the situation about the air pollution in industrial transition, how FFGI methodology can also still relevant with this national country context. And also from our experience in Responsive Bank Indonesia, that we also have the engagement not only for banks, because it's also challenging for us to engage with them. So we also build relationships with sector bodies, for example, the Indonesian Bankers Association, Indonesian Banking Development Institute, and even labor union from banking sector. And of course, we can also engage with the regulator itself, the Financial Service Authority, or the central banks. And for regional, we can also have a strong relationship with the multilateral development banks, ADB, World Bank, IMF, and also the ASEAN Taxonomy Board. Yeah.
I believe the air pollution, it should be taken very seriously because it is something which goes beyond the boundaries. If coal are burned in Indonesia, it doesn't mean it's only affect the Indonesia, it would be affecting all the countries near to it. And like in Pakistan and even in India, we are facing smog in the winter time. Until and unless the both countries talk about it, because it has to be a simultaneous from the both sided. There is no solution. We are being unable to find any solution for it. Even the Indians are not being able to find any solution to it. And even when during the current war in the Gulf, in the Iran, when the oil well were bombarded, the smoke reached as far as Pakistan, in my home district of Panjgur and Quetta. So it is something which needs serious discussion, and it need even especially the Asian countries, they need to sit together and talk about it, and we need to give center stage over it. So that could be a good start for the next phase.
Thank you. I believe for the next phase, we should continue the policy assessment work along the practice area to publish our case studies like the FFI is doing since long time. So practicing needs to capture very well and see and present the real face of those policies which are not practiced on the reality. So practice case studies are equally important. The second is that we all in 10 countries have common problem, air pollution. So if we monitor the air pollutions together as a regional platform, we will have campaign and we will have our evidences together. So in that way, we will be contributing on a single agenda and having a larger impact. More than millions of people will get benefit because of this single effort. So it need to be consolidated in terms of the research and advocacy and have a common platform to build on. That's it.
Many thanks to all of the panelists, and thanks for all of these recommendations specifically. I think now we have around 15 minutes for the audience if they have any questions online and offline. So we can start in the room, then we can look in the chat. Yes.
Oh, thank you. I'm Japal from the NGO Forum on Cambodia, Fair Finance Cambodia member. Actually, Asim already, for the last message that we should continue to do that. Actually, I don't have any question to any panelists, but just share very short because FFC team already shares in the morning, Aziza King, related to the bank policy assessment, consumer protection monitoring, that our score is very low and we face some challenges in local context, Cambodia context. Since the beginning that we do the bank policy assessment since 2019 by Profondo and the last two by ourselves, NGO Forum on Cambodia with FFC member, and we very challenged in terms of releasing the result, and we find the final solution that we should do the release with the bank that agree to disclose their name on the result, and only one bank agree to put their name on, because they are on, I mean, the top among the 8 bank that we did the assessment the third time. Still, we also do the ESG compliant assessment with bank and financial institution 2 times. And last but not least, ESG compliant in microfinance by Oxfam in Cambodia. We still can continue to do that, and also we kind of during the last 2 phases, phase 1 and phase 2, provide kind of capacity development with the support from SOMO, Profondo, and Fair Finance Asia consultant team to the bank staff as well. But as the shrinking space of CSO in Cambodia, and we facing term of freedom of expression, warning by the ruling party, the government related to the criticism of their activity. So some environmental activists face detained, and recently this case has related to the criticism of the poor delivery of the material to the military, something like that. So still facing the issue of the, but at the same time, we see that the progress made by the government, especially from our CSO contribution in terms of written input by collecting from our member to the new development policy. For example, like the just launched sustainable finance taxonomy for banking sector is include our input in there as well. And related to the green financing, that from the beginning, from the start of the Fair Finance Cambodia, it's not really heard much in Cambodia, but now it's very, I mean, popular in terms of green financing by, for example, the ARDB, Agriculture and Rural Development Bank, government-owned bank. They apply that, and also create the climate green facility that can provide the loan, green loan to the small investor. But still, as Kim mentioned, that the interest rate still high for the borrower. So something. So, and we also do kind of the CSO and banking financial sector dialogue annually. We did 3 times already. So we see that the kind of closed door dialogue, constructive dialogue, written input to the government is still valid for Cambodia content, not the confront one, not the criticize through the media that sometimes make harmful back to us as individual and organization. We can face a lawsuit by the government. So we still commit to do that. And also the establishment of the Financial Consumer Protection Center by the Association of Bank in Cambodia and Cambodia Microfinance also have to improve in terms of the consumer protection in Cambodia. Still, we wish to get insight, advice, strategic approach from all of us here so that we can continue the journey together in terms of improving sustainable finance in not only in Cambodia but also in the region, so that we can find the best way working together and get good approach together. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for sharing. I think we had another question from Daniel here.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for sharing. I have a question because you've mentioned your engagement with the banks, that you have had mixed results or mixed relationships. What would be your recommendation for coalitions in from different continents that are starting with the bank policy assessment, that are beginning, will be their first time doing this assessment and also engaging the banks? What would be your recommendation to them in navigating these difficulties?
Due to the echo, the voice is not clear to me. As I understand, I repeat. So, experience from engage.
They will. Is this better? They will be engaging for the first time the banks. So, and they're likely to face also challenges, risk of litigation, etc. How would you recommend them to navigate those challenges based on your experience?
So, first time when we start assessment process, so we have a very difficult time. We experienced that nobody was attending our calls, asking the regulator, nobody is responding. So we trust the democracy. And based on the democracy institutions, we approach the parliament. And through parliament, we approach the regulators. Actually, the committees of the parliament approached the regulator, and then everybody was listening to us. And then we have a good negotiation and talking and understanding. First, they were saying you were doing a survey. We are saying we are not survey company. We are doing assessment. We want to see what you are doing and what you are aiming for. So it's depending on the man to man, person to person. Some people are polite, listen carefully. Some are wise, give you a space to think and reply. Some are very shrewd and give you a lesson. Oh, if you do this, we will go against you to the court. So we experience every color of the water. So, but it's lovely journey. But we believe that it's wonderful. So I must say one last word from my side. We are all sitting. I feel proud that I am a part of these wise people's community, which is called Fair Finance Asia Community and International. So I have been in this sector so many years, so I learned it. Based on our researches and advocacy and everything, we are very very powerless people. So based on our knowledge work and efforts we are collecting, and then we are able to making some dent. So why not we take 3 or 4 years, one single agenda. With these countries, we are facing single problem. So based on that single problem, we put our energies together and then solve it. And after that, our children will feel proud that we are the children of these wise people who really believe the change can happen, and then society transform, and we are from these people. So generational inequality can be solved a little bit. There are thousands of problems, but this problem can be solved together. And it's a solvable. It's not a big issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Asim. I wonder if we have any wise people with more questions online. Can you check, please, our colleagues? No? No, there are no more questions. Thank you all for attending this conversation. Thanks for our panelists. It was a very rich conversation. I'm honored to be moderating it. And I think that's a closure for the day. I'll hand over to our MC.
Thank you very much, Dina. Thank you very much for leading the discussion. And thank you very much to all the panelists. Kindly stay on the stage because we're going to capture you on this momentous occasion. So I would like to invite all the panelists to maybe join on the center of the stage, at the center of the stage. Okay, and I would like to invite Berkey and also Huma to come to display your face on a screen. And don't forget to smile. We're going to capture you together on my count in 3, 2, 1. One more time, please. This time, bigger smile, please. Ladies and gentlemen, 3, 2, 1. Thank you very much. Can we please give big round of applause for our panelists in this final session? Wow, thank you. And also thank you very much, Dina, for leading the discussion. Ladies and gentlemen, so as I promised before, this is the final session, but don't forget to be back tomorrow at 8:30 as we're going to start our morning session promptly at 9 a.m. But before we officially close today's session, to give you a brief overview of tomorrow's program and the key logistical arrangement, I would like to invite Mr. Makaran to come forward and provide the logistical briefing for tomorrow's session. Mr. Makaran, please.
Thanks. Hi, my name is Makaran. I am going to be your facilitator for tomorrow morning session. And I have one request, just one request. When you walk into the room tomorrow at whatever time, we start at 9 sharp. But when you walk into the room, please leave all your electronic devices, either in your room or in your bags. It's going to be a session where we are expected to interact with each other, where we are expected to work something out. Devices are going to be distracting. And I want to say this again, devices are going to be distracting. I know that most people in this room have not known a life without a device in their hand. But as somebody who has seen that life, take it from me, if you do it for 3.5 hours tomorrow, I'm just asking for 3.5 hours of device-less life. Come in with energy, come in without your devices. Let's talk about, keep it in your pocket, no problem. So long as you don't use it, I'm fine with anything. But please, definitely laptops, iPad, laptops, don't keep them, don't use them. The reason why I'm making this announcement now is so that some of you who have something urgent to finish can do so before 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. But between 9 and 12:30, please, no devices. Thank you very much. We'll see you in the morning tomorrow.
Thank you very much, Makaran, and I'll see you tomorrow. So, ladies and gentlemen, this concludes the program for day 3 of the Fair Finance Asia General Assembly 2026. Last but not the least, can we please give big round of applause as an appreciation for all of us? Thank you very much. And today's discussion have highlighted the interconnected challenges and opportunities facing Asia's financial sector, reinforcing the importance of regional collaboration, evidence-based advocacy, and inclusive approaches to advancing sustainable finance. And on behalf of the committee, we would like to extend our sincere thanks to all of our speakers, moderators, facilitators, and participants for your valuable insight, thoughtful contributions, and active engagement throughout the day. Thank you very much. And before you leave, we kindly ask you to complete our event feedback form. Please fill it out. You will also find the QR code signage around the room for your convenience. And ladies and gentlemen, we look forward to welcoming you this evening at the FFA Network Cultural Dinner at Arum Restaurant. So tonight we will have cultural dinner, and you are all invited. And as this is a cultural dinner, we encourage everyone to wear your best national costume. So have you prepared for tonight? And kindly gather at the hotel lobby. This is the important thing. Kindly gather at the hotel lobby at 6:15. 6:15 p.m. sharp. For the shuttle departure to the dinner venue, because the dinner venue is outside the hotel, so we need the shuttle bus. And kindly gather at the hotel lobby at 6:15 p.m. And to our Fair Finance Asia Network members, don't forget, we look forward to seeing you tomorrow for the final day of the General Assembly, where we will review the achievements of Phase 2 and collaboratively shape the priorities and strategic direction for Phase 3. Thank you very much once again and have a wonderful evening. Yes, any questions? 15. 15, yeah? 6:15. Okay, don't be late. Please don't misheard it to 6:50. Yeah, it's 6:15 p.m. Yeah, 6:15. And then thank you very much once again. Have a wonderful evening. Have a wonderful cultural night, and we look forward to seeing you tomorrow. And of course, this evening at the cultural dinner. Thank you very much. I'm Rani Raj, signing off. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Shalom, Om, Santi, Santi, Santi Om. Nama budaya, salam kebajikan. Terima kasih.